Hi there. I've come up with a new method of hiding Viewmodels in TF2 that actually works on matchmaking servers. But first, I want to give a bit of background on why this is even necessary before I actually get into the advantages of it. So, to start us off here, this is the default view model in Team Fortress 2. It has a field of view of 54, despite the player game camera actually being at 90. It sits in the middle of the screen very obnoxiously. You can see that the pan is actually taking up the entire height of the screen at the default settings. For example, the demo man's grenade launcher is huge. It takes up an entire quarter of the screen. It's very obnoxious when you're trying to aim. Now, this hasn't been an issue for very long, because TF2 for a very long time, in the multiplayer and then advanced settings, has had a little slider here called View Model Field of View. It goes from 54, which is the default, up to 70, which, as you can see, looks a great deal better. It's not amazing, but a great deal better. The scatter gun doesn't take up so much of the screen. The frying pan allows you to actually see the map somewhat. Now, View Model FOV, as you'll note here, has a max of 180 and a minimum of 0.1, which is ridiculous, and you never use that. But the max used to be higher, but regardless, that doesn't really matter here. You can actually turn this up to, we'll say 90, like what a lot of competitive players use. This zooms out the view model, kind of. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's zooming out the view model. But it does have a few issues. If you look down there at the very bottom of the screen, you can see that the scout's arm starts to get cut off here. This is very obvious when he's swinging around. You're going to see it clipping quite a lot. But it does let you see more of the screen, and that's definitely great, especially on the soldier. Definitely clips down there on the bottom of the shotgun, but you can actually see more of the screen. Compare that to the stock, where this is your screen. So, a lot of competitive players either use view model FOV of 90, or they use another option, which is in the multiplayer advanced settings, called TF draw view model option. It's there in the multiplayer advanced settings, still in game to this day, but you'll notice it's not in the advanced options menu from the main menu, which brings up the skinned version of that same menu. It should be at the bottom here, but you'll notice it's been removed. It was removed in the Meet Your Match update when Valve decided they no longer wanted players configuring those options. On competitive matchmaking servers, not casual, but competitive, those are restricted. You have to have an FOV, a view model FOV of 54, and you have to have your view model on. So I'll show you what it looks like without your view model on. Now it's much easier to see your screen. On Scout especially, aim way easier. But it has a few downsides. You can't tell when you've got a throwable out unless you know that you've clicked it. If you've got a melee, it's very hard to time your swings, because every melee weapon has a certain delay before it actually impacts from the moment you click. It doesn't actually shoot it instantly. So it's much easier to have that on so you can time it out with the swing. So to make it so that players can have their primary without a view model and their secondary and tertiary, their melee, let's say with a view model, they've used something called a crosshair switcher. Brozel's crosshair switcher is probably the most popular one, but mainly that lets you switch between it based on the slot you're using. But it has a few drawbacks. One, it has a bit of a hitch if you ever run out of ammo. Now, I don't really have a class that can easily run out of ammo on me right now, but the point stands here. I'll just go to the pistol, the regular pistol. And you'll notice when this runs out of ammo, it'll switch to a different weapon. Usually it's the last one I have, so it should be the shotgun or the scatter gun. Now, the crosshair switcher, because it's a script, cannot tell that I've now switched to the scattergun. So if I had Viewmodels on for the pistol and I was using a crosshair switcher, I would still have Viewmodels on right now for the scattergun, which is not great. Using a crosshair switcher to change Viewmodels is kind of a hacky way of doing it. Not to mention, it uses this rdraw viewmodel command, which is locked in matchmaking, which is useless. You can also hook viewmodel FOV into that, but again, locked in matchmaking. So that's how people used to hide Viewmodels. Now it still works in casual servers and it still works in community servers, and it should pretty much work in everything that isn't a competitive matchmaking server. But it's still a hacky method, and it obviously doesn't work in competitive matchmaking. So I noticed something. On April 25th, 2016, Valve put out an update. It was just a small incremental thing, fixed a couple bugs, but it added a key feature. They now allow Viewmodel animations to be overridden on SVPure 1 servers. So what this means is that when you're on a server using SVPure 1 or 2 with Valve's whitelist, which is every Valve server, I think most competitive servers, depending on the league and rule set in their config, pretty much every community server out there does this as well. MVM allows this. It means that you can use alternate community like mods for just your viewmodel animations. It can't change the skin on the viewmodel, but it can change how the viewmodel looks in certain ways. Like right now I could be pointing the scattergun up or something. It was brought to my attention that this could be used to move it off screen. So I took a crack at it, and we're going to look at that now. Just switch you over to my desktop here. Perfect. So I made this thing called a comp VM installer. So what this does is it allows you to change every single animation for every single class for every single slot. And you can make it so that, say, scatterguns are hidden, pistols are hidden, but things like Mad Milk, which are throwables, they're still in the same slot, so a crosshair switcher wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but because I'm editing it on an animation level, I can tell the difference. I can make the Mad Milk still appear. I can also still allow things like inspect animations to appear, even though I'm hiding the weapon themselves. When you use the inspect animation, it'll pop back into view until you fire again, and then it'll clear your screen. So let's say I want to hide scatterguns and pistols. I just pick my Team Fortress 2 folder, which is, where is it? Steam Library, Common, Team Fortress 2, and then I hit install. You go through the process of modifying those animations, and it'll install it for me. Now, I just fire up Team Fortress 2 again. And I'm not going to edit this, so bear with me. It'll take a minute. I'm on an SSD, but, you know, TF2 2007 takes a little while. Now I'm just going to load up item test again. We'll go to Scout, and you'll notice I have no view model. If we look at rdraw view model, you'll notice it is on, but I still have no view model. I go to the pistol. I disabled pistols, keep in mind. I have no view model. But let's say I change my weapon here to the Mad Milk. I now have Mad Milk. I go to the melee. I have a pan. I go back. I don't have scattergun. Now, if I do the inspect animation, because I didn't choose to hide the inspect animation, that will still appear. But as soon as it finishes, or as soon as I fire, it gets out of my way. Happens for the pistol as well. Need one that actually has an inspect animation. As soon as I start firing, it clears off my screen. Now, the big advantage to this is, because this is just an animation mod, this isn't a script, this isn't changing any variables of the game itself, this works on competitive matchmaking servers. And I've set it up for every single class, for every single animation, which is not necessarily every weapon. For example, the demo doesn't have many options. Every single sticky bomb launcher of his uses the same animation. Every single grenade launcher, with slight exceptions, uses the same animation. For example, the lock and load has a different reload animation, but because it uses the same everything else, I could allow it to have reload animation, but its idle animation of it being there and it firing would still be different, so I figured I'll just bundle it in. Things like the heavy would be great. You can hide shotguns, but if you want to be able to tell when you have your sandwich out, you can still do that. Spy and engineer and spy are great ones for this. So right now I haven't yet figured out how to make him keep his invis watch and dead ringer out while he's hidden other things, but I'm working on that. But especially with the engineer, you can hide shotguns and pistols, not hide your Wrangler. You can choose to hide things like the build and destruct PDAs, which you couldn't even do with the crosshair switchers in the past. You can hide the toolbox carry animation, which you also couldn't do with switchers in the past. You can choose to hide wrenches if you want, but not the gunslinger. You have a lot of customization here. I can change, say, if I want to hide regular rocket launchers but not the original. If you like the giant dick in the bottom of your screen, you can keep it. You're free to do so. If you want to have the bison, don't know why you'd want to, but it uses a different animation, so I let you do it. You're free to do so. Every single time you want to change something, keep in mind, there's the one downside to this over a crosshair switcher. You can't change it in-game. You have to restart your client.